I'm saying good evening to everybody in Russia across the huge expanse of different time zones. My name is Энтони Пима. I'm talking about how to teach translation technologies, okay? And the important thing is that I'm not here to tell you what to do. Why is that? It's because each class and each translation program is different, and what we do depends on our needs analysis of what needs we're trying to meet. So here, I'm actually just giving a class that I gave last week. Here I teach a course called Teaching, Translation and Interpreting. It's for training teachers in this. And last week we discussed what we do with technologies. And the textbook we use for that is Dorothy Kelly's book there, which is in need of a new edition. It has to be updated. And so we do update it as we go. Now, what interests me there is that from the needs, we get the skills and then the learning outcomes. And from there, we devise sequencing in the syllabi of our courses and then the curricula that we have. And the first problem we have is, where do you put technology in the sequence of activities that we're going to use to train translators and, I suggest, interpreters? Now, the trick is all the needs are different, so all the programs are different. I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you what I do. And from there, you might get some ideas about how to adapt that to your situation. Now, in Dorothy Kelly's book, she presents this from Spain. It's the core curriculum for undergraduate training. You've got the first cycle is first 2 years, second cycle, second 2 years. And let's look for technology there. Where could it be? Up there, I think. Computing applied to translation, which is pretty broad as a topic, and I guess terminology would be included there as well. It's definitely in second cycle. It's coming after the grounding in translation. And that's a form of sequencing that I think deserves to be questioned. Most of the translation programs around the world have a very simple structure, well, are based on a simple structure, rather like this, where we do the basic stuff first, and then interpreters go off and do their thing in conference interpreting, and we train people in written translation. And often the technology is done later. Why? Because we've all read Vygotsky and we know basic education principles, and we say, hey, you do the simple things first and the difficult things later. Technology is difficult, so we'll do it later in the second cycle or later on in our master program, and it's going to be up here for written translation, okay? The other thing, you need computers to do it. So we have all these translation centers with computer laboratories where students go in for those technology classes. That's difficult to do at the beginning because we have more students at the beginning usually. And that's another reason, an architectural reason for doing it later up there. Now, I think we have to question that. I think these days, everybody needs technology, and they need technology at the beginning. They have to get used to using it from the beginning so they get better at using it as they proceed. And I think that applies to interpreters as well, who are using lots of technologies in the booth, and they have to know what it is and how to use it. I also think that these days, if you're going to do anything with language, you need a laptop. And if you're going to be a translator, you need a laptop. And so I really do not teach in a computer room at all. I just have a really big table. I have my students around the table and they're working on their laptops in pairs or threes. And I walk around the back of them and help them when they need help. And I try to do that right at the beginning. There's another reason for that we'll come to in a minute. Now, well, the other reason I'll come to in a minute is my students are getting younger. I don't know about yours. It could be we're getting older though. Anyway, the new generations of students that come in have grown up with these technologies. So they're just much better at it. And they're using them anyway, whether or not we teach them. And that means they're using machine translation. They're doing post-editing anyway. We might as well do that at the beginning because they are. I'll stick around for arguments and discussions afterwards, okay? Now for the needs analysis. Now, the surprising thing is there are many studies out there of employers, and almost all the employers tell us we have to train people in translation technologies. It's a sine qua non, you would believe. But I can look at surveys of graduates and find out that the place of technology is really not that high. This is from Anna Lefebvre, who did a doctoral thesis with me some years ago. She then used the thesis to change the entrance examination system for the United Nations Translation Service, but she also looked at the European Union. Her study was on what graduates need when they enter intergovernmental organizations. And so she asked the revisers. People go into the United Nations system, their work is revised for 2 years. So you want to know what skills they need? Well, ask the revisers. Which of these skills do you correct the most? And what's the importance of them? And you can see there, I hope, that the top skills in both systems are remarkably the nuts and bolts of language work, okay? Being able to write well, capture the nuance, recast sentences. You know, where is translation in this? If all the other employers say we need, sorry, where is technology? Translation is at the top. The technology is right down the bottom. Why is it down the bottom? Because both these organizations have their in-house technologies. Once you get the job, you are trained in the technologies there after our training program. Okay, so there's a bit of real world consideration here. We don't have to do everything in our training programs. Remember that there is lifelong learning and technologies are going to be picked up down the track. So that explains that. There was a big CUT survey in 2014 of 2,600 graduates from the previous 10 years of programs in CUT institutions. And they asked, which aspects of your studies have been most useful for your career? And the answers were, hey, foreign language learning, of course, general translation course, and where is technology? If technology is so important, it should be up the top, but it's not. It's fair way down. If you get computer and CAT tool training, that's a pretty general term as well. Could be anything with computers, terminology, project management, software localization. We can see that translation is not the foremost thing, okay? It's there, but it's in the middle. And I'm interested in why it's in the middle there and what that can tell us for the kinds of technologies we should be training people in. Here at the University of Melbourne, we did a study just last year. That's why I'm interested in these previous studies. We've been running, I think, for 4 years now, so it's a young program. And we looked at 77 graduates. We have 100, of whom 77 answered the survey. And we asked them, which skill do you wish you had acquired more of? And I'm not going to go through the list of skills here, but the ones in that pinkish sort of color are the technological ones. So the one up there is awareness of the technologies used in the translation industry. And we see, once again, it's sort of in the middle. It's not at the top. We do have these other skills. Target language skills, that is foreign language skills, are the ones that are most in demand and the most useful. Now, what we did, though, was break down our students according to where they have got jobs. And this is a key point, and this is why I've got into these numbers. We find that about only a third of them are working in translation and interpreting in any strict sense. Another third are working in language teaching and language work in a wider sense. And another third are enjoying life doing many different things. One is an air traffic controller, for example. Other is working on importing fashion into Australia from China and things like that, okay? They're using language, but they're not translating particularly. Now, what we see here first is that, well, no, I must make the point, the other surveys, the big COT survey I just mentioned, and the EMT survey from 2016-17, and the previous ones that we looked at, all the surveys we can find so far are rather similar. That only about a third of our graduates are working as translators and interpreters in a strict sense. Then there's a wide penumbra of language professions in which translation skills are being used. And then there are people who are doing many other things. Now, technology obviously is at the top there for the people who are working as translators, okay? And that's emphasizing translators and less interpreting there in that particular instance. Less here and less here. This means that...
Excuse me, slides are not changing. Are you displaying them already? Because the participants are worrying about that.
You cannot see my slide?
Like we can see the first slide, but they are not changing.
They're not changing? That's very weird because you need to see my slides.
Definitely, okay. We do.
Let me see what I can do here. Hold on. Okay.
Yeah, right now they are changing.
They are changing. Hold on.
Well, you did something, yes. Now we see different.
I've done, oh yes. If you could, my slides were wonderful, ladies and gentlemen. If you didn't see them. Okay.
Yeah, no.
All right, so I'll just go through quickly. This was the United Nations European Union one with the soft language skills at the top, no technology. This was the COT one where you've got...
they are not changing again. It's still the same slide. It's right. With Elia.
Elia. Okay, let's see what I'm doing here. Wait a minute. I'll tell you what. I'm going to stop share.
Right. Maybe download again.
Is there anyone there? This one. Can you see that?
Let me see. Yeah.
Is this? Can you see the three columns? Good. All right. Okay. This is the key one, actually. That the translators have the pink colored technology, the language workers in the middle, and the others down the bottom. So the technology, the hardcore technology, is only really being used by the people who are getting jobs as translators, and that's about a third of our graduates. And that is a pattern that we find in the previous studies as well. People have been trying to hide that by defining translation in a very, very broad way, but this is what is particularly worrying. The fact that not everybody needs them, and that the communication skills, the interpersonal skills are really very, very, very important for these other graduates. So we cannot ignore them, okay? People who expected me to say everybody just needs technology, no, that's not my argument. My argument is some people need them and others less. Elia, right, this is, you can see this one now? What we do find though, in this study, 2019 of the European Language Industry Association, is that the big companies are the most profitable ones by far, and they are the ones investing a lot in technologies, particularly machine translation and automated workflows, that is complex project management, okay? And the smaller players do have translation memory tools, but they're not working with machine translation technology at all. In fact, there's considerable resistance. So what we are finding in the data from industry is, firstly, not all our graduates need the technology, but if you're going into the translation industry and you want to work at the top where the money is moving, then you do need it. And you need that kind of technology working with machine translation in particular. Okay, now the solution I've adopted looking at these numbers is the following. We do the basic translation skills as students come in, and we give them MT, machine translation. We do post-editing there. We do pre-editing there, that is preparing a text so that it goes through machine translation and you solve the problems before they occur. So that's a kind of technical writing, if you like. And we do lots of terminology work. And there we just work on free translation memories that are available on the web. Old ones like WordFast Anywhere, and there are many, many of them out there. There are Russian ones, there are ones from Canada, and they're all free, and you get the same basic principles. What I aim to do there, this is as people come in at master level, is to get them so they can pick up a new translation memory suite and use it to translate in 2 hours. So they are learning to learn. I'm not teaching any particular tool. I'm teaching a range of tools, and they have to be able to pick up a new one, use it, translate with it, and evaluate it within 2 hours, which is fine because they get used to finding lots of self-help information on the web, lots of user manuals, lots of forums that discuss particular problems. And once they got that, they can go off and explore the world of technology because they're young. I also do a bit of subtitling there because that's good fun, okay? And you can do it with freeware as well. That's at the beginning level. And that's part of a wider mix that emphasizes they have to work in teams and communicate with each other, and that communication is part of the deal. Not just hide behind the technology, but use the technology to do teamwork. So the tools that I just mentioned there have items within them for teamwork, for revision work, for getting a translation divided, sent out, fed, brought back in, put together. And so we get them working at that level as small companies with a project manager, with a terminologist, with translators and revisers, and they get used to those roles. At the more advanced level, though, the people who are doing written translation get the same deal at a more advanced level, and we use Trados. And we use it extensively. We do all this work in Trados. The terminology is done there, the project work and the project management is all done within Trados, which is a far more complicated tool and more expensive and more professional and more difficult to integrate with machine translation for industry reasons of confidentiality, basically. And those students build on what they acquired at the beginning to get professional level translation skills before they go out as graduates. We also include search engine optimization and a little bit of game localization as well. Actually, I was teaching that class, game localization, let's see, about 20 minutes ago, we were teaching that particular class. So my solution has been to do two things, basic at the freeware, basically here, and the other one up here. One of the big reasons for this split is that Trados and MemoQ and the other main tools that companies are using is not compatible with Macs. Lots of my students have Macs. Therefore, we start with web-based freeware. Okay. Let me address now one of the main problems that we have when we talk about doing this. There is resistance to technology, and it is well-founded for the reasons I've just presented, I think. The fact that we do need the fundamental translation skills. And this is summarized by Brian Mossop, who's a good friend, and I edited his book on editing. He says, if you can't translate with a pen and paper, then you can't translate. And there is some truth in that the translation skills are to some degree independent of the technologies you use, to some degree. But whether or not it's entirely separate is a moot point. My retort to Brian would be, if you can't use, let's say, if you can't use any technology, you can't get a job. And that having the technology with the language skills is going to improve your employability. And I think that's the argument that has to be made. These two statements are not mutually exclusive. You can learn to translate, and you can use technologies, and you can do both at the same time and very well. Part of it is to point out that pen and paper are also technology, and that technology is all around us. We are cooperating with technology everywhere, every day, and whatever we do. Why should translating be any different? When meeting resistance, you have to avoid, I think, oppositional statements like this. And I have this in my class. A human can always translate better than a machine. Or I've had students say, when I teach post-editing, I came here to be a translator, not a post-editor. Fair enough, good. I tell that student, go, don't use machine translation. You can go ahead and translate from scratch if you like, okay? Post-editing is the correction of machine translation. Now, the retort here is, I think, that a human with technology can translate better than a human without technology. So in the first class on translation technologies, I don't tell them this. I get them to do an experiment. Half the class translates from scratch, and the other half puts it through machine translation and post-edits. And then we check the times and see who did it faster. And then we check the quality with peer revision. I don't like marking translations. I get them to peer revise each other. And we find usually that the machine translation, post-edited, has produced a text that is faster and has better terminology, usually. It may have stylistic infelicities, which means that a second round of post-editing might be necessary. But the point can be made in 2 hours that a human with technology can translate better than a human without technology. And I think that is the question we have to pursue. How can that happen? How can it happen better? The first statement is not something that we can ever benefit from. The second statement is. We have very good translators who will say, I don't use technology, so my students don't have to use technology. I've had that. I've been in a prestigious translation school in the United States some years ago, I must admit. We were talking about where to introduce the teaching of trados. And I've had my colleagues there say, we translators do not use these technologies. And at that time, I could bring out Langudaki's report. I think it must have been 2017. No, it must be earlier than that. She found that in the UK, 70-something, 1 or 2% of the translators were using some kind of translation memory technology. And I could say to my colleagues, you don't, because you're older than most of the people. You're at the top of your profession. You've done very well. You've got up there using old technologies. But there's a younger generation out there who are using their technologies to climb up the ladder. Let's not act blindly and take away the ladder just because we're on top. The point to make, of course, is that we're always using technologies. We all get to the top of our profession will head up that way. Using our technologies, that's not a reason for denying the technologies of the next generation. In one of the first classes, probably even before I did that experiment, I get them to go into this website. It's a bit old, 2016. And these are translators who just talk about tools that they use in their profession. And the tools are a vast range of things that you probably didn't think about. Many of them concern keeping track of how much time you spend on a particular job or for a particular client. Some of them are text-to-speech tools. I actually learned this. There you go, 2016. Lots of them were saying that to revise a translation, the best way is to get the computer to read it. You know, you sit back in your bed, you listen to your text being read by the machine, and you spot all kinds of errors that your eye doesn't see. Oh, that was rather cool, and I started doing that ever since then. Now, the point to get across is that there are technologies all around us, and they can be used or not. Some are more cooperative than others, and they are to be explored. So I just send my students off there, and I ask them to pick up 3 and try them and tell me if it worked. We get back their reports. The main point is, of course, as I said before, that our students have grown up with technologies, computer technologies, all the way, okay? My son is now 15. He uses it to cheat on his French homework, but they're all doing that. Are they cheating? No. They're discovering how to learn from machine translation and make the most of the resources that are available to them in electronic format. There's no reason to deny that as a valid learning tool. I think that all students should be taught translation in, this is a contentious point, in all additional language learning. I am interested in training translators and using top-end technology for professional purposes, but I'm even more interested these days in having translation used in language learning. That means opposing immersion ideology and showing that students are using translation and can use these tools all the way, okay, even when they're very, very young and using the spoken capacity of computers before they're actually writing. Machine translation can be used as a learning tool, not just for translators, but it can be used as a dictionary that gives lots of examples, as a comparative grammar tool, and as a source of translation suggestions. I think when we look at technology, we have to be aware that there's a scale from computers doing everything right down the bottom here with no human intervention, offers no assistance, and here the computer does everything by itself, all right? So from 1 to 10, there's a whole lot of different ways in which the human interacts with the non-human there. The problem is if we stick at level 4 there, where we put something into machine translation, take this as an example, and we get out a result and we think that is the translation. That's how non-translators interact with the technology. But a translator can use it in any other way there, okay? Using it as a range of suggestions or alternatives, okay? Not moving up the list, but moving down. And I think it's important to be able to do that, and that's what we have to get across when we talk about not just post-editing, but ways of using the machine to suggest things. Okay, here's what you do with a simple translation memory tool. It's got a machine translation suggestion. You've got a sentence that I've been working on there, and you can accept it or not, but here we're invited to modify it if it doesn't sound good. And that's what the tool is there for, to modify the MT suggestion and bring up other suggestions from your translation memory, if you've got one there. But my simple point is, I'm working on this, the German problematic term here that was badly done, selbstverständlich, which is translated a matter of course. It's not very pretty as a translation, not necessarily wrong. This is from Google Translate, when I got selbstverständlich, of course. This is going to be wrong because that's an adverb. In the context, it is an adjective. So it's going to be wrong. But the Google machine translation gives you all this language information. It operates as a dictionary. And red is wrong. You want to pick something out here from the adjectives. Okay. I can put it into DeepL, which I love because you just click on that and you get all these translation alternatives. The machine is there to give you suggestions as to how you should translate it. It's just like having a dictionary that's very, very quick. And you have different translations over here as well. Lots of linguistic information is available. And that's connected with Lingua, which you probably know about. And this gives you different translations with codecs, which further enhances your capacity to decide. I think if you look at it like that, the technologies that we've got are replacing the reference tools that we've had forever. And they're just giving us this reference in a far quicker, far more convenient, far more efficient format. I'm finishing now. I want to go back to a very simple model of what translating is. That is translating in the soft skills approach of doing language work, but also integrating technology. For a translation problem that you've got in your start text there, a translator can generate a number of alternative translated texts, TT. Okay, so I've got this problem, selbstverständlich. How do I render that? It could be of course, it could be natural, it could be any one of those other ones, okay? If there's only one, I don't think it's translation. It's a problem of terminology or of grammar. I think a translation problem has a plurality of possible solutions, and there is no clear rule as to which one is correct. You're in the field of stylistics or adaptation or intuition, any of those, okay, or appropriateness to a particular text type and target, etc. From that, the translator has to select one, usually. You have to do it quickly because you want to make some money. You can't refer to any rules because there are no rules. There is no grammar of translation, I propose. And you have to do it with justified confidence. And building confidence is one of the main things that we have to do when we're training translators. And we hope that this trustworthiness means that it's an ethical confidence as well. Now, in that model of the translation process, the translation technologies that we teach help with that, help at that phase, the generation of possible translations. That's what they are really good for, and that's where we should exploit them. The other things, though, the capacity to choose and adjust, to communicate for a particular audience, for a particular purpose, the capacity to do without rules, the capacity to project and merit trustworthiness, and the confidence to do all that in a professional way. All of those things we really do have to train alongside the technology. It's not with or without technology. It's recognizing that technology has a very fundamental place within the cultivation of translation skills. I've closed with an argument that was used many years ago by the people working in corpus linguistics. I'm not a big fan of corpus linguistics, and I don't pretend that corpus linguistics is somehow being connected with machine translation. No, machine translation is mathematics these days. It's got nothing to do with corpus linguistics. But this is from Kirali, actually. John Kirali opposes the transmissionist or instructivist classroom where the teacher gives knowledge to the students. This is from one of his early publications, I think, to a constructivist model where the teacher is there and the students are working in groups and the teacher goes around and helps them, and students are discovering things by doing things, all right? This is the constructivist mode. If you're teaching like this, we have technologies that make your voice louder, like a microphone, or they can all read you, like you can all see the PowerPoint. Technologies now are enabling me to act in that way, enhancing the power of the person at the center, who is the teacher. And that is one possible use of technologies. But if you use the technologies I'm talking about as suggestions of what can be done, you give the students direct access to the range of alternatives, and you give them tools with which they can make their own decisions. And so I think that used in a constructivist way, which I think is an appropriate way, technologies should boost the capacity of the learner to explore language independently of the authority of the teacher. And that, for me, is one of their great benefits. I think I finished. I hope people follow that. I welcome questions.
Thank you so much. It was such an insightful speech. And there are many points I would easily agree with you on, because we don't see the way the technology, well, not exactly. We are trying to fit technology into our programs, and we are still in doubts where should we place them actually. And this is great that you started just from beginning, started like children do it. Thank you. Dear colleagues, if you have any questions, please either write in the chat or just ask for permission to make a voice. If you have any questions to Anthony, please. Right.
Can I just say, it's great that I can see all your faces.
Yes, that was exactly the request from our organizers.
Okay.
So that they, yeah, we would like to make some kind of...
All my Chinese students are hidden. They never show their face. I don't know what they're doing.
No, we are trying to, okay, right. No questions somehow. Then, yes, more people are appearing. Please turn on the video. And I would like to thank you again for your kind consent to speak at our events and to mark the Translation Teachers Day. We are ready to send our gift, a t-shirt with our logo.
Okay, that's what I really needed. I need
yes, Natalia is showing one.
I look forward to the t-shirt.
Yeah, a t-shirt.
Yes, and we have the slogan here.
Oh,
yes,
very good.
Building a network of teaching excellence.
It's not in Russian. I need it in Russian's cool.
Yes.
Yeah, but interestingly, we are a Russian association, but our slogan is in English. And we have just yesterday translated into Russian.
And we have this also.
Yeah, yeah, the same. Some flags.
Yes. Do I have to wave the flag as well? Do I?
Yes, yes.
You will be able to do it later. Okay, right.
Thank you. Do we have questions or?
it's just some remarks that some people were listening to you via our students' interpretation with the help of the VerSpeak platform. It's a remote translation, remote simultaneous translation platform, and the students were listening to you in Zoom and interpreting that via their telephones.
Okay,
and
I apologize, students. I speak too fast. But
no, you didn't speak too fast. And I need to thank those brilliant students who agreed and carried out this adventure. Well, not enterprise, I would say. It's a deed already. Yes. So since they're not really a professional interpreters, that's an achievement, I would say.
Here they are.
Yes, we can see them. This is
really?
Alexei,
Tatiana.
Hi.
Okay.
And we can see
Tatiana is here.
so much. Yeah, they are.
So much, yes.
No, it's always better to do it live with something real and more frightening as well. So you get used to the nerves. That's fun. Okay.
Марина, может быть, мы попросим его, предложим послушать перевод студентов, коллеги могут задать вопросы по-русски. Они могут включить перевод на английский канал.
May also ask questions in Russian, and the students will translate into English. Can you go?
Russian, French, German, Italian, Catalan.
We have a link. Just a moment.
Anthony, there is a link to our program where you can hear the interpretation.
Interpretation into English.
It's in English, yes.
Just a moment.
Down the link. And
yes, yes. Just a moment.
It starts with verspeak.com.
Yes, yes. One moment.
Yeah, Natasha is copying it.
Yes, yes. I'm here. That's.
Если кто-нибудь хочет задать вопрос на русском, задайте, пожалуйста. Есть вопросы?
Just a moment.
Can I ask, just out of interest?
Yes, it's here. Just a moment, everybody here. Here's the link. You can see it also, Anthony, in chat. Do you see?
Yes. So if you go to that link, you can hear the translation.
You can choose Русский.
Yeah, and the translation will be heard.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah, all the time. Because I'm a teacher of teacher.
Technology. Also technology for remote teaching.
I select Russian or I select English?
English. No. You should select. Yes, English, of course.
English, yeah, I think so.
And now мы можем задавать вопросы по-русски. Ребята, успели переключиться?
Максим, пожалуйста. Вопрос.
Момент. Алексей, сейчас я всем включу звук. Алексей, у вас там все получилось? Помашите рукой, если все окей. Все хорошо? Окей, сейчас я так включаю всем, что могут все звук включать. Один момент буквально.
Natalia is permitting everyone to gives the permission to speak.
Yep.
To everybody. Okay. Галина Головкина, you can speak. Вы можете тоже задавать вопрос. Поднимали руку, да? Я вам.
Ich möchte eine Frage auf Deutsch.
Okay, super. Super, meine liebe Sprache.
Muss es einen besonderen Kurs geben, wo die Studierenden neue Technologien lernen müssen? Oder muss dieser Kurs integriert werden?
Das habe ich
in
nicht
andere
verstanden.
Disziplinen.
Muss es eine besondere Disziplin geben? Oder?
Перевод, технологии в переводе.
Таня, на английский переводим.
Я сейчас перевожу с немецкого на русский.
Я поняла, да, у вас уже рефлекс, потому что немецкий. Anthony, do you understand German or not?
Auf Englisch oder auf Deutsch antworten dann?
Auf Englisch oder auf Deutsch? Ich glaube, ist besser auf Englisch.
Besser auf Englisch.
Ja.
Kein mehr Deutsch. Ja.
Die Studenten sprechen besser Englisch. Das ist ihre erste Sprache, Fremdsprache.
I think if the question is, should there be a specific discipline or place for the technology to happen? I don't think so. I think we have to accept that technology is a part of the way all students are using language these days. And they're going to have those competencies in whatever they're doing. So I don't, should it be a separate subject though? I do at the beginning. It's not. It's part of everything they do at the beginning. It's part of the normal translation process. So for example, if you start using a particular translation memory suite, we want them to use it for all their translations in all the classes at the beginning, all right? So they get good at it. Otherwise, if it's just done, if for 2 hours a week, they'll be able to use it, but they're not becoming experts. But if they're using it for all the translations across the entire week, they become very good. However, the more advanced classes, the ones where we do project management and sophisticated terminology management, that is a specific subject. Sorry, in Australia it's called a subject, elsewhere a course. We have a particular course for that at the advanced level. So it's an excellent question. There is no one solution to it. My personal thinking is general at the beginning and specialized at the end. And you're doing different things in those two different places. Interpreters, I've been muted. Interpreters in the booth need terminology work as well. So I think some terminology training in electronic glossaries has to be given to conference interpreters as part of their general training. Geht das so?
Ja. Okay, Dankeschön. Alles klar.
Gut.
Dankeschön. Eine gute Frage. Спасибо большое, хороший вопрос. Я еще хотела бы тоже задать вопрос, если можно. У меня вначале были некоторые тут организационные моменты, и, возможно, Энтони, вы про это уже говорили, но я не услышала. Скажите, пожалуйста, каким программам, средствам автоматизации перевода вы обучаете в первую очередь, может быть, с чего начинаете, как продолжаете? Есть сейчас много академических программ, которые доступны для вузов. Сегодня мы про это тоже будем немного позже говорить, у нас будет презентация академических программ нескольких. То есть у них свои условия разные, и хотела бы узнать ваше мнение. В вашей практике, что вы используете, какие академические программы разных вот этих средств автоматизации перевода. Спасибо. Alles klar, die Frage übersetzt ist.
Ich finde keine Frage.
Also keine Frage? Dolmetschen? Es war nicht, ja. Okay, dann frage ich auf Deutsch besser vielleicht. Ich war eigentlich nicht von da beginnen hier, so online. Ich habe einige organisatorische Fragen hier an der Konferenz. Und vielleicht war es in deinem Vortrag, ich habe es vielleicht nicht gehört, welche Cat-Tools wählst du im Unterricht? Es gibt viele akademische Programme, jetzt in Russland auch, die sind zugänglich für uns. Es gibt eine große Wahl und heute haben wir einige Präsentationen davon. MemoQ, Transit, SDL Tradus und MemSource. Diese Produkte, welche wählst du in deinem Unterricht? Danke.
Also welche Cat-Tools?
Welche Cat-Tools, yeah. Which Cat-Tools do you choose for the students?
Okay. At the beginning, anything. I mean, there's just a whole lot of things out there. I do use WordFast anywhere because it's old and I'm old, so I know how to use that one. And MateCat, and they then go on to SmartCat and Cafe Trans, and there's MemSource, and there's just a whole lot of them.
Yeah.
And they pick it up and discover it. Now, I like to have the students don't like the old ones because they look old.
Yeah.
They like the ones with
the interface.
But that's okay. I don't care. And I used to use MateCat because it has speech to text integrated. So you can speak to the computer and it does the translation. But now even the old ones have that integrated. And so the important thing is that all the tools change every year, and you have to keep abreast of it. And I have no preference. Others, Omega T is an old one that we use, but I get the students then in that learn to learn class. They have to go out, and I just give a whole long list, and they can pick any one they like. And if they don't like it, throw it away and pick up another one. So that they're used to picking up new tools and evaluating them very quickly. And they're very good at it. I mean, they're much better than me because they've been doing this forever.
Yeah.
If they're gamers, they are really, really good at it. Okay?
Yes, I understand. Und noch eine Frage.
At the top end, when I'm training the people who they decided they are going into the translation industry. We're doing Trados at the moment, but I abandoned Trados about 10 years ago because it was too complicated and there were too many compatibility problems with different operating systems and too many students had Macs. And so I said, I'm not doing it anymore. I've taught MemoQ for many years, and that was great. I really like MemoQ as a system, and MemoQ as a Kilgrave. The company has the best customer service of any in my experience. When I had a problem, they would get back very quickly, and that was really good. And they also give a very good deal for students. You get a 1-year license for the students. At the end of the year, the student can buy it at a discount rate, which is very good.
Yes.
Trados these days has excellent training materials. So all their video training materials, which we could just point the students towards, and that is really good. Unfortunately, Trados is overrated and overpriced for what it is. That's what you can do when you're a market leader. It's good for the students.
In Russia, it's cheaper. In Russia, Trados is cheaper than in other countries, as I know.
Well, but still, MemoQ will be cheaper than Trados and do the same thing. You see, we've had to teach Trados without a machine translation feed, which has been very good. So it is possible to teach the use of the translation memory suites. Just turn off the machine translation feed, but with Trados it didn't work, and we haven't got it working. But that's okay. We're training them in the hard skills of developing their own databases and working on their own translation memories, which is more professional and more in tune with what companies are doing. Okay, so that's my experience. There are many tools out there though, and they're changing all the time. And so I'm always interested in hearing from other trainers about their experience. And I confess, I've come back to Trados because I was speaking with Vanessa Enriquez in Auckland, in New Zealand. And she said she does that. Oh, okay, I'll try it, okay? So we work as a community and we share our tips and our preferences.
Yes, okay. Und vielleicht machen Sie auch Übersetzungsprojekte. Es hängt eigentlich davon ab, welche CAT-Tool zu wählen, ob Sie ein Übersetzungsprojekt in einer Gruppe machen oder müssen alle alleine übersetzen. Zum Beispiel.
Ja, aber das müssen Sie in Trados, das ist ganz einfach.
Mit Projekten,
The more sophisticated tools have project management tools in them, which we get to use. You can also get like MemoQ with the project management version. that's not really needed for the kind of small-scale simulated projects that we've been doing. Some training programs just have project work going all the way through. I know Guadec in Rennes would teach translation without any classroom, without any classroom hours. They would just give groups of students a project to do, and the students go and do that at any time they like, anywhere they like, using the tools. Here we use translation projects that last 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And we have rival companies and they have to do a presentation at the end, win a contract. And they really get into that.
Yes.
And not only can they use the technology, but they also integrate the technology as part of their presentation of their public image. You know, we will win this contract because we can manage your terminology better. And here you've got the great screenshots of how multi-term does that for us, for example. So the project work is part of it, and the technology, but even the cheap stuff, you know, even MateCat and WordFast have very basic project management tools built in. MateCat for dividing up, sending it out automatically, and getting the revision controlled. You can do that all within MateCat, which is free and on the web.
Okay. Wir machen das auch so eigentlich.
Ja.
Dankeschön. Colleagues, I have Maxim didn't there, so have questions. Maxim. Okay.
Maxim.
She has a question, but Maxim? No. Maxim? Question? Just a moment, okay.
Is everybody muted?
I'm.
No. Maxim?
Yeah, may I ask one question?
Yes,
I just wanted to say in German, but I understand it would be better to remember my English and to ask the questions in English, so just not to let the guys and girls to interpret it. So first of all, I'm really impressed, and thank you very much for the presentation. It was the first experience for me to listen to other translation teachers via Zoom, but because normally I'm a teacher.
Yes.
So, may I have your presentation just for internal use? I promise I will not share it for everybody. May I have the presentation for internal use for our translation technology department?
Yes.
Everybody say yes. Everybody say yes, but I
have this presentation, Maxim.
Okay.
If Anthony says yes, then I can send it to you.
Anthony, let's assign a person who is responsible for passing through your presentation to the persons who are reliable. Is it okay, Natalia? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, I think, yes.
And if you have 1 minute now, I would like to share the experience about translation technology at our translation technology department. We start just at the very beginning, first year, and the second semester, just the beginning. And I see the earlier we begin, the earlier we start, the better it is. Because the guys and girls 17 years old understand the matters much better than me. I'm about 43. Okay, I'm a very old guy for the girls and boys. They understand much things much better and much more quickly than me. Okay, and then we return to the issue to the translation technology in the third year and in the fifth semester. After the students just have already tried to translate, to interpret, and to make quality assurance and etc. So, and during the second step, we return to translation technology as lessons. So, with translation technology teacher, with special translation technology teacher, we develop term management, translation memory management, machine technology assignment, machine technology training, and so on and so on. So it's I just understand that it could be a good solution to start technology early, just in the second semester or in the first semester, and to go through all the translation lessons with other teachers, just after the students know something about it, and then to come back just close to the beginning or in the third year or just in the fourth year with the translation technology developed. So it's just the idea of our translation technology department, but it will be the topic of the next of the next section. Thank you very much once again. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much to all of you. Thank you for.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.